We could, if you could please get be seated, it's approximately 1 o'clock. There are a lot of people who would like to give comments today, so if we can get going, let's do that. My name is Steve Jacobson. I'm the hearings officer for the Hawaii Department of Health. My role today is as moderator to make sure we get as many people as can and they're able to get their testimony in. Also, as the Department of Health's hearings officer, there have been contested applications for contested cases that have been filed. I will be hearing those also. I would just a few things about today. You heard the part about aloha, etc. I don't want to repeat that. Please keep the aloha up. Understand that if you have made written testimony already, that testimony is part of the record for this proceeding. You don't need to repeat that testimony. Both oral testimony and written testimony. The written testimony is already in. There's still more time to submit that. Oral testimony will be transcribed. All testimony will be responded to. In order to create a record for the contested case, if you have filed a contested case, you still need to have in the record the things you intend to rely on during that contested case, so they have been presented to the Department of Health in advance, so they can take them into account in making the final hearing, making the final decision on these permits, and putting together. You heard it, I think earlier, if you were here this morning, you heard that there's still questions to be decided of what the respective permits, if they are issued, are going to say, and so you do need to put input into that process. Particularly if you have any scientific articles, any articles, surveys, reports, etc. You don't need to read the whole report or put the whole report in, but you do need to give a citation to the report to the Department of Health. So if the Department of Health folks who are doing the permitting or handling the permitting process, so they have a way of accessing those, and so that those get into the record, because they can't. If just something saying, well, there was a survey somebody did 5 years ago and it showed this, this, and this, that's not really helpful as far as finding it and being able to check it out in terms of putting the rules together. Okay, as far as this process of putting the rules together, I am not I'm a moderator today. I do not participate in that process. And I can't, because later on I'm part of the review process, okay? So you don't need to persuade me today, and when it gets to the contested case hearing phase, what I'm going to be considering is what's in the record in the contested case. So you basically don't lobby me today. I'm not the person you need to lobby, okay? I have something over 50 applications, 50 check boxes of people who want to give oral testimony today. So let's try to keep it to 2.5 to 3 minutes max for everybody. Well, one more thing. If you want to make sure that an item has been preserved for the contested case, and is part of the record of this public hearing, so it can be brought up in the contested case. You yourself don't have to say what somebody else has already said, okay? And because I've said that at the outset of this hearing, you don't have to, because if a court disagrees with you, you can point and say, this guy who was conducting the hearing says we don't have to repeat what people have already said, and you're fine. We've raised the point for the contested case hearing. So you don't need to repeat, okay? If you want to say, I agree with what so-and-so said, you certainly feel free to do it, but you do. We're trying to get as much information as we can, so if we can, so repetition isn't necessarily helpful. We understand it. It's obvious that there's a number of decisions on this. Okay. For the speakers, what I'll do is maybe have 2 or 3 names in advance of, and I'm just going to go down in rough order of what we have. Okay. If the speakers could go here, but I'm going to say the next 2 people too, so that we can have people sort of maybe sitting off to the side, so we don't lose a lot of time with people going up and down. All right. If I missed anything, I'll try to add it on to everyone as we go along. First speaker is Corey Martin. Okay, and yes, if you can sit there with the microphone and kind of face the court reporter here so she can get you. Okay, and after that it will be Ella Kawardi and Jason Maholi Subika. And if please accept my apology in advance if I butcher anybody's name. I'll do the best I can. There's handwriting issues, there's linguistic issues, but I'll do my best. Okay. Please go ahead. Ms. Hart. She can't.
Is the mic on?
Oh, is the mic on?
Hello?
Is that better?
Okay. All right. Thank you for holding this hearing. Corey Harden speaking for myself. Our best energy future is one that works with the environment and with the people and not against them. This morning, Honua talked about the November 9 spill and said, oh, it was just vitamin C. I'm guessing it was citric acid used for cleaning. That can burn your skin, and the spill probably included residue from whatever they were cleaning. I think our best energy future is not through Honua. I'm concerned about our oceans. Our oceans are a source for feeding our bodies, enabling travel, nurturing our marine companions, and refreshing our spirits. And our oceans are not a dumping ground for industrial pollution. The Department of Health gets a lot of pressure from higher up not to be bad for business. But what if DOH does not really require strong permits? And then there's a lawsuit of a ruling that's saying Department of Health was wrong. Honua could be fined hundreds of thousands of dollars per day. Would Honua then go and sue Department of Health, which means taxpayers end up footing the bill? It's really hard to believe that all that water, however many thousand million gallons injected that close to the ocean, is not going to migrate to the ocean. But instead of proposing dye tests to see where the water comes out, Honua says, oh, we'll just check after we start up. And it seems Honua forgot its promise to our planning commission to go to get an NPDES permit and to do monitoring on the ocean floor. For the stormwaters, there's 2 outfalls on state land. There should be an environmental assessment, hasn't been done, and a 3rd outfall is likely to have contaminated water. Both the injection wells and stormwater system threaten to destabilize the cliff. 3 actions the Department of Health should take. 1, for the underground injection wells, require dye tests before the plant opens and require an NPDES permit. For the stormwater permit, do strong environmental protections. And for the contested cases, grant cases to all requesters. Stop Honua from operating until the cases are resolved and resolve cases in a timely manner. We should not repeat what happened with Honua geothermal venture contested cases. Those dragged on for over 2 years and the violations continued meanwhile. We need to protect our lands, our oceans, and our best energy future. Thank you.
Let me add one more thing to what I said earlier before we go any further. In the notice of this public hearing, there was an indication that comments needed to be submitted to the addresses in there by 5:30 today. I've been asked to extend that, and I have the power to do so. that deadline is going to be extended, I'm hereby extending it till 8 o'clock Monday morning on the, I believe that's Monday the 19th. That gives 2 days plus the weekend. There's been a lot said that people may want to run through their minds and add to their comments they've submitted before. And you can certainly do that. But do have it by 8 o'clock Monday morning of next week. Okay, Ellen Guardi is next, followed by Jacelyn and Stella Edwards. Ella, are you here? Am I mispronouncing your name? Okay, not here? Okay. Jacelyn and Holly. Okay, these are the three of the students here. Stella Edwards. Okay. Next will be Lila Anderson, followed by Gary Harold, followed by Kalani Souza. So Lila Anderson next. Gary would be next, followed by Kalani.
Hi, my name is Lila Anderson, and I'm speaking against the creation of the Honua energy plant. What I'm fighting against is all the chemicals going into the ocean. So first of all, the ocean is not a trash can. And the ocean is very important to our ecosystems for a few different reasons, such as the ocean produces 70% of the air we breathe by the ocean's plants. Lots of the ocean's fish are edible to us, so if we are sending chemicals into the ocean, the fish would probably ingest the toxins that will eat the fish, and the toxins are nice. I also want to point out that from the energy plant's gases, they go up into our atmosphere and cover the atmosphere, and the toxins in that would probably be bad. And then also all the endangered species in our oceans could potentially become extinct. Thank you.
Followed by Kalani Souza, followed by Hank Ferguson.
Yes, I'm Gary Harold, an activist with the Sierra Club, and 5 acres a day are going to be cleared from the surrounding area on the Honua coast. 5 acres. That means a lot of erosion, runoff from the ocean, sediment on the coral reefs. Do you think coral and fish like to be coated with sediment? It's washed down. It's not like this a Gobi Desert up there. It rains a lot. And finally, I'd like to say that I would be appalled if I had these logging trucks rumbling through my neighborhood every day after spending however much they spend on a plot of land. And thank you for listening, and thank you, DOH, for taking testimony.
Kalani Souza, followed by Hank Ferguson, followed by Glenn Callo. I'm sorry. Do you know what?
Oh, mine. I've been in a wheelchair lately, so you know, it's been a little rough getting around, so I hope you don't mind if I stay right here and be kuka like this. Is that okay?
Okay, we got a microphone.
If you don't mind, I'm going to sit down and let's see you guys. My legs kind of wobbly like this, and I wanted to move, and you know, do it. So anyway, aloha, you guys. In the case of Hawaii, the first non-white monarchy accepted into the European family of nations, a nation whose constitution guaranteed that all land will be held for all time in trust, in perpetuity for the people. The people. The past, it may have a voice here, but it seems it doesn't have a vote. The past, it seems, informs us but doesn't control us. We're control the choices we make. So all things can be used as weapons or as tools. Self-perceptions and positions are optional. Whether you own it or not, you all belong here, and you should inspect your beliefs. It's because of my values that I have to object formally to the creation of Honua. Particularly when the university and the state are aware of projects such as TCOM, which enable us to do the same kind of energy conversion, create the same jobs without polluting. And it's headed up by Shiloh Business College, by Dr. Abuleo Tusi, and they do clean regenerative energy created from trash even. We could use the eucalyptus trees to recreate the biome on Honua coast, and given the food security problems faced by the state, you would think that 10,000 farms on Honua is exactly what the people need. For our people on this coast, where we do it using good, clean technology, and we reinvest in Honua. Get Bishop Estates to reinvest in the people of this island. I'm telling you, it's worth it. Mahalo.
I'm Hank Ferguson. I'm going to put here mine is very short. Oh, yes. Okay.
And it's very short, too.
My name is Honua Ferguson. I'm the spokesperson for Nakapuna Kukiapi, which is a gathering of Kupuna from all 6 major districts of Island of Hawaii.
Can you hold the microphone closer to your mouth?
We're very concerned that there is no environmental impact statement on this proposed project. And to our knowledge, there's not even a permitting process, such as the conservation district use application or permit, which is a state requirement as the proposed project intended to discharge water to the Pacific Ocean. That Pacific Ocean, by the way, is part of the Ceded Lands Trust and part of the Public Land Trust. So the Department of Land and Natural Resources should be involved in this, along with the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands. Public hearings must be held on this project. Nakapuna Kukiapi demands that a complete environmental impact statement be prepared before this project is allowed to move forward, and that permits applications be made to the Department of Land and Natural Resources requiring public notice and public hearings. There is there's a much larger conversation that needs to be had regarding the use of public resources to benefit private corporations. That has found a way to limit the public input to public scrutiny. Nakapuna does not support any underground injections in any form. Thank you. I was just presented with some evidence of discharge that was picked up on Friday morning at the construction site. This is waste matter that is being dumped directly into the ocean. I have 2 samples here. I wanted to do this in public, so I'm asking the Department of Health to be the receiver of this toxic material for animals, but I want to do it in public so people know that it's being done.
Were you able to give those to someone? Did you give those to somebody?
I wait for somebody from the health department to do a trade-off.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Okay, next speaker is, okay, it's Glenn, I'm sorry, I can't, I'm in trouble with your last name. Gilbert, something we get to with an A, and then Lou Hawker. And if you could please spell your name, last name too, so it's in the record correctly.
Carvalho, C-A-R-V-A-L-H-O.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenn Crowe. And I'm born and raised in Hilo and a resident of Pipikeo since 1974. I come before you in support of the Honua Power Plant project. I'm not a scientist or an engineer, just a retired plantation worker. However, I have attended open public meetings relating to the proposed power plant. One was several years ago, and another just a couple of months ago, sponsored by the Rural South Hilo Community Association. In both of these meetings, the management of the proposed power plant did a presentation regarding the proposed plant and the steps they are making to ensure that the plant will be an environmentally friendly plant with all the necessary safeguards in place. After the presentations, they invited the audience to ask questions, and they responded to every question in detail, how they address an individual's concerns regarding environmental matters, including water quality. During these meetings, I have never heard someone introduce themselves as a scientist or an engineer to challenge or dispute information provided by the power plant management. Being a former union official, I am very leery of management's promises. However, without any authoritative contrary information, I truly believe that the management of this project will do everything that the government, federal and state, requires to protect the environment. Therefore, I respect that we especially request for that you pass the necessary permits for this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gilbert, I believe it starts with an A, followed by Jim Hopper, followed by Lorraine Mendoza.
Did you skip me?
You are.
You read my name a while.
So your name is?
Mama, I can't.
Not yet. Yes, Gilbert, you're right.
Gilbert DeMota, born and raised Pipikeo. You know, how many of you were here during the plantation days that moved to Hawaii lately? If you was here during the time of the plantation days, you'd be complaining about the water, not now. The water was worse, but yet I raised 4 kids and I eat the fish, and now I'm 86 years old. And, what the plant is doing something good for the island. So if you don't know how to live in Hawaii, pack your suitcase and go back home. We don't need you here. You can survive. You've been surviving all these years. Now, I have the shirt, but I don't work for the plant. I retired a long time ago as Hilo Coast. Actually, it was Pipikeo, then we merged with another plantation. That's why the name came Hilo Coast. I worked there for 32 years in the plantation. I used to go work at the garage. Then during the off season, they sent me down the mill. I used to go down fire room, and afterwards I go down to the lower floor. And during the lower floor, I see a lot of fishermen fishing. And one of them is my 2 houses away from where I live. He used to bring the fish all the time. And I used to go hunting and make smoked meat and give him return. That's how I start. We always trade out. And we all take care of each other. The fish is no problem. Today even, my son is going out there fishing. And the fish we eat yet is still okay. Like I say, I'm 86. Just happened I'm not feeling right good now that I need a cane. But otherwise, the fish is not affecting anybody. It's only in your mind. A lot of you are lying. So if you're going to lie, go back home. We don't need you here. Thank you very much.
Spell your last name so I can get it down correctly. Oh, Demont, okay, thank you. Okay. Lou Hawker, Lorraine, followed by Lorraine Mendoza, followed by Mr. or Ms. LaPrince.
That's a tough act to follow. I'm only 76, so I'm a long way from 86, at least I hope. And I've only been here 20 years, and I never worked in the plantation. But I do have a scientific background. There was some mention of who has scientific background. I have a BA in 58 in physics from Princeton, a PhD in physics from MIT. My specialty is infrared physics. I actually am very interested in the global warming topic because I find that is not science, very discouraging for me as there is no global warming that can be attributed to human purposes, or if there is, it is so slight you can hardly tell it. But anyway, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness.
What did you say about global warming?
Global warming has not changed its rate in a century, and so it is very hard to attribute that to carbon dioxide. But that's not really what I was here for. I'm here, I live in Hilo, actually outside in the Pueo section. It's a really nice area. As you folks might know, a long time ago, people planted huge amounts of eucalyptus. The concept was that would be shipped to the mainland where it would be chipped up and made into the furniture, which really doesn't work very well here because of the high humidity. But anyway, that was what the plan was. They used huge amounts of it. By the time it was ready to be harvested, then it turns out that there's a loblolly pine in Georgia that works just as well and is a lot nearer where the plants were that were going to be handling this. As a result, we're left with this tremendous forest, huge amounts of trees. Now, what are we going to do with the trees? I'm looking for suggestions as to what we're going to do with the trees. You're going to what? Okay, just so you know, that does not work for eucalyptus.
Okay, excuse me. Pardon me. This isn't a quick question and answer session. This is a
Beg your pardon.
So,
I will go right along. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, just for future speakers, you may ask questions, but I will consider them rhetorical questions that you don't expect answers to until the report is given.
Beg your pardon. I'm very sorry.
No, that's fine.
The Seligna splits, it is not usable for construction. It was planned specifically to be chipped up. Well, we're not going to chip it up, so it sits there. What happens is the trees get bigger and bigger. Eventually, they decide to fall over, so you wind up having a tremendous mess. The landowners don't have a use for these silly things. So what happens? You are at risk of a forest fire. Gee whiz. Have we heard of forest fires anywhere around here? There's one going on in California that's pretty amazing. I admit it rains a lot here, but we've had periods where it didn't rain for a month or more. Okay, so here we are left with a problem of what do we do with the eucalyptus. You can ship some of it off to China. In fact, on my property, some of it was shipped off to China. But they're not going to take huge amounts of it. We can let them fall down and become replaced by invasives. Wouldn't it be more smarter to cut it down and actually make use of them? That's what they're planning to do with this plant. It makes tremendous sense once the plants are cleared, once the trees are cleared, you can plant some crop which is appropriate now. It's too bad that that's the way things were left. They didn't anticipate the loblolly pine in Georgia. In any event, also what,
You're running time, sure, time. So,
okay, I'm out of time here, and I thank you very much for your paying attention to this. I dearly hope that you guys support as much as possible this plant. I appreciate the electricity that they use, that creates for us.
do you want, is it Lou Hopper? Okay, Lorraine Mendoza, followed by Mr. and Ms. Prinsey. Claire. That's a CL, thank you. Okay. Okay, followed by Claire Prinsey, followed by Maurice Golding.
Aloha, my name is Lorraine Mendoza. I am a 37-year-old, not 37-year-old, that's a lot after my red, white, and blue Medicare card. I am a 37-year resident of Cliffy Kill and have been a community advocate for a large part of my life. My experiences in leadership and participatory roles in numerous organizations and events have served my passion and love of community. My past involvement with the Pippican Community Association has yielded numerous issues and concerns, one of them being the Honua Bioenergy Project. This entity is not new to the community and has a unique history. The items being addressed in this public hearing today are its applications for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Systems, the NPDES permit number HIS 000557, and the underground injection control wells permit to operate. I strongly support Honua's applications and request approvals of these applications and that the issuance of these permits be granted. The naturally generated stormwater has entered the ocean via the cliffs fronting the biomass facility site for over a century and during the sugar production era and power generation period. The rules and regulations are not as strict then as they are today. Honua Bioenergy has complied with the rules, regulations, requirements, and the conditions imposed by the Department of Health. An on-site disposal will manage the development-generated storm runoff as required by SMA 221, Condition 6. The facility site stormwater volume will be managed with strategically located dry wells throughout the site equipped with trash racks that will capture debris. Hazardous materials and chemicals will be stored undercover and inside buildings. Routine inspections will prevent the accumulation of unwanted potential pollutants. Honua will comply with all environmental rules, regulations, requirements, and conditions. Their depth and strength of commitment and love for the Aina and environment is no different than that of all of you here today. Many fishermen have been heard to say in the heyday of sugar plantations, hey, when the water browns, that's the best time for go fishing. The fish happy, they get plenty of food, and when you catch, the fish fatten and have plenty more. The rules for discharging into the ocean were not as strict then as they are now, and yet we're all okay. No one has 4 eyes and 13 toes. We had food on the table and clothes on our back. The near completion of the 3 underground injection control wells is possible because of the permit to construct them was issued in August 2018. Consequently and logically, the permit to operate will draw non-potable brackish water from a depth of 400 feet to cool the condenser. The water will then be returned to its original source. The drinking water will not be affected. The public information hearing prior to this public hearing presented facts and discussions of the biomass facility.
Finish up.
For those of you who are fortunate to be a part of that meeting, it is to your credit that the effort was made to hear those facts. This is what it is. This is a process. This is what is being done. Facts that reflect that it is what it is, the plan, and you can't change what is true. Respect the fact that each one of you have the ability to seek the answers out for yourself, to get the right information, to trust on your own ability to decide for yourself your opinions and feelings. Sure, you may hear this, you may hear that, but know that the choice is yours. Be strong enough to represent yourself and not be swayed otherwise. Find out the facts and decide for you. Communities are meant to be built, not divided. Communities are meant to be protected. Communities are meant to be valued, and so are our constituents. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify in favor of these applications.
Thank you. Followed by Maurice Golding, followed by Jeff Knight.
Aloha. Honua. I'm an indigenous practitioner. I've been helping babies for over 4 years. Oh, what am I? Sit on it? I never not told her that you can't hear me. Okay, aloha. My name is Claire LaPrince. Claire LaPrince, Honua. I live Hawaii. Been here for a long time, most of my life, on and off, and helped over 1,000 babies before. And I've been asking the Department of Health for the maternal and fetal mortality rates for 15, 16 years now. They are high. I teach nationally, internationally. I dance nationally, internationally, and locally for all of life. Very concerned about more things going into our kai, our vai. Deep effect on those in the Puna state. That's the baby. So there's a difference between acute and chronic, and you should look that up. You think you feel fine right now. You think your fish are fatter. That's not necessarily good. Lean horse goes a long race. People were not. You've got problems with the heavier weight. Same with the fish. So you got to be careful about things. You got to listen. Indigenous people all around the world, we're speaking out. Because we are dependent on the land and the relationship to the land, the kai, the air. We are all in the same ohana. They are our ancestors, our Iwi. So I'm going to spend the last minute beating the beat, because that's what we're connected to. We are all connected to the beat, whether you know it or not. That tree has a beat. And for those of us that know the Lipo Lipo, you should know the Kumulipo if you come from here. Your queen, our queen, was amazing. Writing to the very end. Organizing, setting it up right now so we could be here to speak and regain the land. Because we have an intimate relationship with the Vai and the Kai, with the Honua. That is our mother. And so we are very passionate about this. Our waters are already extremely, it would take 2 more generations to clean up just with what RIMPAC's doing.
Okay, could you please finish up?
I'm not through with beating. I'm going to beat again for 2 minutes, okay? So the first beat is the beat of the pohola. That's the well. This is how I'm beat. So close your eyes. Just listen to the beat. And connect to that eye. Don't look like that. This is our babies. These babies are dependent on this beat. Our wells are dying. Our mono is dying. 50 million years they've been there, the wells. 200 years, 100 million years for the mono. These are our ancestors. Please, if you did your studies, where is the baseline study that you used to go with this EIS? And where's the EIS? If it's all safe, put it out there. Where are the chemicals? What are they stored in? Look at the countries where those chemicals, those containers have already leaked through. Look at Red Hill. We've had this over and over and over again. So please, do your research. Go past your jobs. I feel everybody needs a job. They're always pitting. They're always pitting us against each other. We don't have one big family. All around the world. We've all got to be. We all depend on it. And your job gonna come and go. But which way do you move Puna? What about 7 more generations? What's we leaving them? Our waters are already extremely polluted. Our fish are dying. Our reefs are dying. The truth is already there. Mahalo.
Maurice Golding, followed by Jeff Knight, followed by Ella Kawardi. We have 62 more speakers in less than 3 hours to go. So if you could keep it to 2.5 minutes, please.
I'm going to do my best.
And if I say, could you please finish up? Please do finish up. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Maurice Goulding. Thank you all for being here on both sides, and thank you for holding this event. This is very crucial. It's sometimes very uncomfortable, but we need this dialogue and this discourse to move forward together. I'm going to first talk about global warming. There's no debate. There's no debate about global warming anymore. If you want to know why there's no debate about global warming anymore, Exxon shareholders are suing Exxon for covering up their own scientists' studies that showed back in the 70s global warming did exist, and it's caused by burning fossil fuels. Not only that, the Department of Defense is meeting with climatologists, they have met with climatologists back in 2013 regarding what's coming, and they're preparing for it. So it's time that we prepare for it, we act accordingly. I met with John Deutsch. I'm not a professor or a scientist myself, I don't have a PhD, but John Deutsch does. John Deutsch is a tenured chemist at MIT. He's also the former director of the CIA. And I had 10 minutes to talk with him while he was going around promoting fracking. And I discussed with him why fracking was horrible. And he acknowledged every single study I brought to him. He knew it. He was telling me back these studies. And he says we are on track for 10 or 11 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. He said forget about 6. And I said 6 degrees above pre-industrialized revolution temperatures means whatever's left of humanity is gathered at the poles. And he said, yes, unfortunately, that's where we're headed. There's too much at risk here. This is not a carbon neutral project. And when I say risk, I mean dire risk around the world. Why would we take it? Why would we risk our health? Why would we risk our environment? Why would we risk the island? For what? We're not even profiting. We're not even getting cheaper electric out of it.
30 seconds.
There's nothing to be had by this. I'm sorry, I need to speak to one thing that was talked about earlier in the Q&A, the model of the geothermal model for the water that's being injected into the ground. It's based on assumptions. Hydrogeology is educated guesswork at best. And I'm not trying to put down anybody's profession, but they've done studies where they've injected dyes into the ground expecting it to come out somewhere weeks or months later, and it comes out in a day. Also, all it takes is one earthquake to change everything, and that water's coming out in one day. So I want to see models that are done in one day. What can it do in one day? And what will happen when it does that? And what kind of monitoring is going to be put there? We have to have sensors in the ground, in the oceans. Thank you.
Jeff Knight, followed by Ellen Duarte, followed by Jason Mahoe Subika.
My name is Jeff McKnight. I'm here today representing the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii. I'm also a concerned resident of the Hamakua District here on Hawaii Island, and therefore I also speak as an individual. When the Honua power plant was initially proposed, it was marketed as using renewable energy sources. Because the eucalyptus forest that is to provide the wood that is to be burned to create the power is supposedly eternally renewable. But since that time, we as a society have come to realize that being renewable is not good enough, not anymore. Energy production also must not cause external damage to our planet. And the Honua power plant would do that in major respects by increasing the carbon load on the environment. This makes the Honua power plant unsustainable, in violation of Hawaii's new law requiring Hawaii's governmental actions to promote sustainability and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. By contrast, Honua would be a monster creator and emitter of greenhouse gases, in direct violation of this goal, which we now realize as a state and as a nation is essential to the survival of our planet. Despite Honua's claim to be carbon neutral, It definitely is not carbon neutral. It is our understanding from information provided by the company that the power plant would take 21 million gallons of water per day from the aquifer. We can't believe that this water taking would not cause some form of serious harm in itself. What might that harm be? Honua and its supporters have not provided any studies to assure the public that these massive
30 seconds.
drawdowns on aquifer water for decades into the future will have no adverse effects on life, on the surface of the land in the area. We simply find such a conclusion unbelievable. Studies have shown that if the water is too warm or does not contain a high enough saline level, it will have a detrimental effect on marine life. The chemical pollution combined with the heat of the water would be devastating to the sensitive nearshore marine environment. Are there any studies to determine if a steady stream of wastewater might heat the surrounding rock and would that negatively affect the rock's ability to cool the wastewater? Are there provisions to monitor and measure the temperature of the water and the salinity at both the ocean point of entry and the injection points to ensure that they are at safe levels? We believe that the proposal to inject these chemicals into the cooling water and then to inject this still hot cooling water into the cliffs constitutes such a great danger to the environment in the Hamakua Hilo coast as to make this proposal completely untenable. Honua President Warren Lee stated that the injected wastewater might be slowed down by sediment and other geological inconsistencies before reaching the ocean. Studies should be conducted to determine if the tainted water could back up into the aquifer and what effects contamination might have on the surrounding land and water, especially in the area around Outfall 3 where it would be discharged over the cliffs. Outfall 1 and 2 are on public state land. Why has there not been an application for easements?
I see you have a whole bunch more pages.
No, there's just one more page.
Okay. Just a reminder to everybody.
Next.
Hold it. Just a minute. Just a reminder to all the speakers